Thank you very much, and it's great to be back in Thailand. I've been here a number of times over the last few years, and I've been involved quite closely with the British Council project to support the development of new TNE partnerships in Thailand. So some of you will recognise me from those visits. My name's Kevin Van Cauter, so I'm a higher education advisor at the British Council based in the UK. And I'm going to be talking to you to try and set the scene around the UK TNE. I'm going to give you, so I'm going to explore UK TNE, look a bit at the scale and scope, the benefits and challenges of transnational education from a UK perspective, and try and introduce you to some of the key terms and concepts in TNE to frame the debate for the rest of the morning, and also to understand some of the models and modes of UK TNE. I think Dr. Bundit has given us a challenge to redefine TNE. I'm going to try and define it and then also look to the future around how we think TNE is developing and shaping, and how the definition is becoming much broader than it has been in the past. So, next slide. Okay, so there's just a summary of what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about what is transnational education. I'm going to introduce this new term, IPPM, that's International Programme and Provider Mobility. And this is a way of the British Council is trying to look at definitions which really capture better, I think, what TNE is all about. So this new concept will be introduced. What are the trends in transnational education? What we know about UK transnational education, and why we've developed a framework and some new definitions around this. And I think it all does come back to what Dr. Bundit said, as I said, around this much broader definition of TNE. So this is, if you like, the old definition. This is what TNE has been known. This is a definition from OECD, and it was produced back in 2005. And really, what it's saying is that it's any type of provision, so that's programs, courses, or services, where the learners are located in a different country from where the awarding institution is based. So a program delivered by a university in country A, which is consumed, if you like, by a student in country B. That's the traditional definition of transnational education. But I think we need to look much wider, to look at some of the benefits of TNE and try and broaden that so that TNE becomes more about partnerships and the way in which programs are delivered around the world. So just a little bit of context. There is increasing demand for higher education globally, that's quite clear. But there are challenges in many countries around the world around how to fund this scale and the quality demanded, how to maintain the quality and to fund it at a reasonable level. There's obviously a greater role for technology in all higher education delivery. There's more emphasis on internationalisation in many countries and increasing researcher and student mobility. Many more countries around the world are becoming open to international higher education, and that's a trend we're definitely seeing. There's greater emphasis on employability and entrepreneurship of graduates in all the work we do and in most systems of higher education around the world. There is also increased competition for international students, and that's something which we're seeing and has developed significantly over the last decade. And for the UK, there's uncertainty. Again, Dr. Bundit mentioned uncertainty around the impact of UK leaving the European Union, including the future of some of the programmes we're in. These are things which I don't know the answers to, but they are significant challenges going forward for the UK in terms of our international education work. But what do we know about UK transnational education? This huge number, 710,000, is the number of students, according to our Higher Education Statistics Agency, who are taking UK programmes through transnational education. 710,000. So a huge number of students are taking UK TNE programmes around the world. Now, this does include quite a large number of students who are on distance learning and on certain types of provision, which could skew the figures to some extent. But I think it's quite a good representation of the number. And this just shows you that, from a UK perspective, this is a graph plotting the number of students on UK transnational education, which is the purple line, and how it's grown over time, compared to the number of international students studying in the UK, which is the blue line. So you can see that over the last decade, the number of UK transnational education students has grown much more significantly than the number of international students in the UK. So it's a shift in the way UK higher education is delivered internationally to international students. More and more students are taking UK TNE programmes. And it's become a really important part of UK universities' internationalisation strategies. So just a UK context, so you can understand where UK institutions are coming from around TNE and internationalisation. We have seen in the UK a slower growth in international student recruitment. That's been a trend. I think around TNE, there's lots of debate in the UK about the different models, and I'm going to talk about the models a little bit later, and which ones bring most value to the UK and to the partner country. Value in terms of social, economic value, cultural value, educational value. How is that measured? I think there is a debate about that going on in the UK. There's been significant and growing demand for transnational education. That's a trend we've seen increasingly over the last decade or so. You know, TNE, from a UK perspective, there are lots of different motivations, but it can be seen as a way of mitigating risk. I think that growth in TNE is likely to continue for the foreseeable future. We've had a lot of data on this over the years, and the trend is very much a growth one for transnational education on a global basis. I think transnational education is a way of accessing students who wouldn't otherwise be able to access international higher education. I put it there as targeting emerging middle class, but what I mean by that is it's a new group of students who wouldn't necessarily be able to access international higher education if they couldn't access it through transnational education. TNE is becoming a first choice for students and is becoming considered to be very high quality. And this is something which I think has changed over the last 10 to 20 years. I think if you think back to the beginning of TNE, it wasn't considered the quality it is today. So I think there's been a significant shift in the quality assurance of transnational education, in the perception of the standards and of the quality, and in the practice of delivery, which all mean that TNE has become much, much higher quality over that period. And it is considered a first choice now by many students. And obviously, the importance of local partners and the two partners in the partnership to deliver a really high-quality student experience. So in terms of trends, what we're seeing from a UK perspective is an increased role for partnerships which support host countries' national priorities. That's very much the case with the work we've been doing and UK institutions have been doing in Thailand to support your national priorities through transnational education and partnerships. We are seeing a trend towards a more partnership-led model of transnational education. So it's becoming, the partnership is becoming the key driver rather than the delivery, if you like. It's moving towards a partnership-based model. More research-led UK universities are engaging in transnational education. That's a definite trend. And transnational education is increasingly being seen as a priority institutionally, so in UK universities, and I'm sure that some of our colleagues who are here will back this up when they speak later. And it's becoming part of UK universities' internationalisation strategies. And again, that's something which is over the last couple of decades has become much more common for it to be a central part of UK universities' internationalisation strategies, which means that there are a large set of motivations and drivers in UK universities which are supporting the development of transnational education, a strategic set of drivers. So the models, now a little bit technical, but I'm going to try and quickly explain some of the models of UK transnational education. I think the important thing is that UK universities obviously are autonomous and can deliver any or all of these models. There's no restrictions placed on them by UK agencies or the government. All of the models are quality assured by our quality assurance agency, but it's up to UK universities to decide which models they deliver and where they deliver them. So we have validation and franchise. Now these models are, if you like, sort of large-scale models where a UK university either delivers its programme through a validation or through a franchise partnership. The definitions are there, very short versions. In In a validation, the partner designs its own programme, but the award is given by the UK institution. And in a franchise, the UK's programme is run by the partner institution overseas. I think it's important because you'll be maybe having meetings later with UK institutions so we can understand, the terminology that's used in the models. The joint award and the dual award is something that is more common here in Thailand, and it's something obviously that's a priority for Thai institutions. These are where there is either a double or a single award, but it's developed jointly by the two universities. Then we have some other sort of, I suppose, less common models or more broad models, particularly the ones around distance learning and blended delivery, where there's a student takes a UK programme remotely, using virtual learning environments, online resources, and more commonly through a range of different delivery methods, including face-to-face delivery. And the top one there, where there is in some universities, there are models where UK faculty will fly out and teach the programme. So they're the more common models. And then last but not least, but probably least in terms of numbers, is the overseas campus, which is actually a relatively small part of UK higher education, transnational education, about 15% of students, of the total number of students on this type of provision. So a whole range of different models. Now, I think when we're talking about transnational education, it's important to understand the benefits that can be derived from it, because a lot of this is about how the partnership can support the institutions involved and importantly the students and what they're trying to get out of it. So for institutions, there are lots of benefits, but just to summarise some of them: reaching new students, diversifying programme delivery, developing a reputation for the quality of education provision. But I think importantly for students, we've done surveys of students in many countries looking at this, and there's some of the things here that the students are interested in from transnational education. The ability to gain more international outlook, develop their intercultural competence, analytical thinking skills, and many students feel that the delivery modes and the methods of teaching on TNE really emphasise critical thinking and develop their employability skills. So I think students are very keen on these attributes of TNE. Now, I haven't got much time left, but I just wanted to very quickly talk to you about this new classification framework which the British Council has developed for what we're calling here, as I mentioned at the beginning, international programme and provider mobility. Because I think that does capture what we're talking about probably better than TNE. TNE is a well-used term, but internationally, I think we can say that we're focusing on here is the mobility of the provider and the programme. And I'm going to run through this very quickly because I don't want to delay the rest of the morning, but just to say that the British Council has done a lot of research looking at transnational education in a range of countries, looking at data, looking at systems. And the thing that's come out of all of these is there is terminology chaos. I've tried to describe some of the UK models, but in many countries, as I'm sure in Thailand, these different models mean different things, or different terms are used for different types of models. We found 40 different terms to describe TNE in our research, often the same term being used to describe different things. So what we've done is we've tried to categorise TNE into a very simple framework. What we have is a common classification framework, which tries to capture both the host and the sending country in terms of the terminology, and it's very much analytical. We've looked at things like trying to understand models: who awards the qualification, who's responsible for curriculum, quality assurance, etc., etc. And we've come up with this very simple framework, which I'll just quickly show you, because I think it's a good way of framing the debate, and also to think about the types of TNE that will work in Thailand. So there are basically 6 categories from all this work which we came up with. There are 2 types of provision. There's independent provision, where the sending higher education institution, so the UK institution, for example, is responsible for the curriculum, the qualification, and the quality assurance. And collaborative provision, where institutions work together on these aspects. And then we divided up the different types of program into 6 categories. So you can start to see that, in Thailand, potentially the number 4 partnership programs is the one which is of most interest. Joint universities, that's something that's a different type of model. The international branch campus is a model which I know that your ministry is interested in terms of developing them in Thailand. So I think this is just a simple way of understanding the different types of provision. All the TNE provision which we looked at falls within these 6 categories. This framework is available from the British Council website. You can get all the detail there, and you can download the research. So I think just to end on some questions, I suppose, and this is based on the framework, but I think a better understanding of the different modes of TNE really helps in terms of building and developing partnerships. If we can establish a common understanding around things like quality assurance of the different types of transnational education, around better understanding of better data collection, better understanding of the impact, it will make a difference to how partnerships are developed over time. So thank you very much for listening, and I hope we have a good conference today, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. I believe that we have time for 2 questions, one from the floor and one through the menti.com. So maybe I'll let you try to type in your question in the menti.com. Maybe I'll ask for the question from the floor first. Any comments, suggestions, or questions, please? So Kevin was talking about the definition of TNE and the trends of the TNE, as well as the challenges, as well as the opportunities, and also the newly introduced terminology, the IPPM, which is very interesting. Well, any questions, please? Well, it looks like there's no question. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thank you.